Welcome back to a Bevy of Bloods for round 5 of the 2023 season. In this episode, we get stuck into the tenacious and gritty win over the Richmond Tigers. As always, we are so proud of our boys. So fluff up your tail feathers and settle in for a potentially biased yarn about all things to do with our beloved Bloods. Okay, Swans fans, I welcome back my long-time Bloods brother and Bevy of Bloods OG, Noddy, mate. How are you?
Good, mate. It's a pleasure to be back. How have you been?
Good. I'm glad this week is over and I'm glad it went the way we wanted. Let's get straight into the game details. Last Friday night, our Sydney Swans defeated the Richmond Tigers by 44 points with a final score of 18-14-122 to 11-12-78. So, Noddy, let's get stuck right into this one, mate. What were your first impressions?
Mate, I was nervous going into that as always, but especially so after that heartbreaking loss to Port the week before, which was just gutting. You know, you guys covered it really well last week with Steve-O. But with both sides wanting to avoid a 3-game losing streak, and obviously ahead for us, we've got the Cats, Giants, Magpies and Dockers over the next month. We really needed to get a W, right? Both sides, obviously a lot was made of it, dealt with injury blows, mostly the Talls, us, Buddy, Ramps, the McCartans, them, Nank, Lynch, Graham, the outlier there in terms of height. But the footy gods didn't stop their crueling party, quelling Amati, who was looking absolutely scintillating in that first quarter, kicked 2-1, but we'll go into that. So look, I think as the youngest and most inexperienced team of the round, and I think they wrote up that it was Horse's third ever in those categories, so still up there in terms of his time in charge. In a game that really, really was tit for tat. You know, we had 2 debutantes, Corey and Gould, in the end. We really pulled through. We showed a lot of courage, you know, and then obviously with a record-breaking game from Tommy Papley, who we're going to go into detail. It was just a character-building win for the ages. I'm going to say that. And we back that up by the fact that there's been some records broken. But, mate, How about you? How'd you see it?
The lead up to this game for that whole week felt like, and I'm not going to say a final, but it felt like such an important game.
Yeah.
We losing the McCartans the way we did through concussion is probably the most cruelest way to go about it, right? Like knowing what Paddy's having to go on through just to get back onto a football field, then to play with his brother and the emotion that goes along with that, and then to then go out with concussion and then his brother go out with concussion in the same game. Like that is footy gods just being awful and just ruthless. And so leading up to this game and just knowing what that was, and then of course the day, and we're all going, okay, the back line's going to be screwed up, but we can do it. You know, Rampy's going to be, big things on Rampy's shoulders. And then the day before, oh no, Rampy's not playing either. Okay, so we have it. We pretty much the back line is missing.
Yeah.
So it was just a build up to that game that I was just. It was absolute scenes in my living room, mate. Like Danny left, my cat wanted nothing to do with me, mate. They were screaming and hollering at every single decision. It was proper intense.
Yeah.
And just to get up was like the most brilliant release that I've had for a game for a while, mate. It really was. And then of course Amati goes out, as you mentioned, in the beginning of the second quarter. And I'm like, for God's sake, are we done now? Can the footy gods get on with it? But mate, it was just beautiful. It was a beautiful win. Like it was gritty, it was tenacious. It had all the hallmarks of what I wanted us to show the footy world. We got young kids. They're gritty. They're hard. They're ready. They're tough. They're talented. And we managed to be able to show a lot of that to the football world on the big stage. So I was very, 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 very happy with the way it all went, mate. What do you say to all that?
Yeah, no, I agree, mate. I guess if we're on it, we may as well kick off with just a quick, gather round as a general concept. How did you find it?
Mate, everything that everyone's told me, and a few fans have messaged through, have all mentioned that it was brilliant game. There's a couple of mentions, and I've forgotten the name of the gentleman. I apologize. He mentioned that because there were so many neutral fans going to some games, they had a really great vibe. So everyone was cheering for just good football. Everyone was there for the right reasons, and it seemed like it was fantastic. Our correspondent, super fan Sam, loved it. He said it was the most amazing football experience he'd been to, and he's been to a lot of games. I think he went to all games of the Swans last year, as an example. So yeah, it seems like it's got legs, right? And it must have, because the next 3 years are going to be back in Adelaide.
We talk about neutral. I think Sam did the halftime report with his cousin Oscar.
Yeah,
and who is a Mad Pies fan. So there you go. And I did hear that 3 more years for Adelaide. So that's good for SA, and it's a great place to visit. Look, they didn't invent the wheel. Obviously, the AFL, the NRL got the jump on them. They've been doing it since 2019. Who, in turn, I think took it from the Super League. Rugby league in England back in the early 2000s. So conceptually, they're not pioneers, but I think they pulled it off pretty well. And obviously, with the weather they had, you've got to play at multiple venues. And the length of the games, you can't have people, in the stadium for 6 or 9 hours, 2 or 3 games in a row. But I thought it was great. It felt like, I wasn't there, obviously. I was just watching it. But, it seemed like it was a success all round, and, festival of footy and all that sort of stuff. But, mate, I was just glad the Swannies got a win as well.
Yeah, look, one thing that I loved about it as well, it gave good opportunity. For instance, Collingwood and St Kilda running through the banner together in celebration and apology for what happened to Nicky Winmar all those years ago. And even went so far as to Collingwood to actually make a public statement and apology for the way that they and the fans and I guess the game generally treated Winmar back then. So not only an opportunity to play football, but as we've spoken about before, football is more than just a game, right? There's community, there's social, there's people involved. So to see that extra element of everyone coming together for a good cause, and all trying to stamp out racism and call it out where it happens, like what a great moment to have and to make the opportunity to do it. Like the gather round's got a lot of legs, and it seems to make a whole lot of sense. And yeah, good on Adelaide for keeping it, man. It seems like they did a really good job, and go ahead. We might be up there in the Barossa Valley this time next year, mate. That's what I'm hoping for.
Look out. Yep. Look, the Pies obviously have got a better PR person in at the moment. But while they're at it, they can say a gesture towards Adam Goods if they're running with that line. That's great. I will say something also cynically. The Mount Barker, which was a beautiful oval, right? Mount Barker Oval. I think they had 7,000 there for the Lions mauling of the Roos, but I just think it's a bit it's a bit far-fetched for the AFL to play an AFL game at this ground, and then on the one hand, and then at the other hand, tell Tasmania that they've got to build a new stadium because it's not up to AFL.
I knew you were heading with that.
You have to. You have to say that. It's just bullshit.
Yeah, you're okay. You can have this gather round at this, one good, and Adelaide Oval's an amazing ground, by the way. I've been there a couple of times. It's brilliant.
Oh, so you think that's the fact that it's just a one-off in a calendar year, it's okay. But you're saying if, we probably should get onto the Swans game. I feel like we're just spiraling out of...
Quick. Yeah. Well, let's quickly just do one more thing about this one. Tassie deserves a team, right? Yep. And Gil's not around. We'll talk about Gil later. All right, let's go. All right, let me quickly... A couple of stats about our boys being so young. And I think this was just... brilliant and just so important. We had the average age of the team was just over 24 years old, and the average experience was 82 games, right, for the players. It had 15 players under 24 and under, and 11 players with less than 50 AFL games. That is a unbelievably green team, and they were gritty. Like I mentioned, they were tenacious. They were not quitting. They were doing the football deeds properly. Pressure, tackle, decision-making. This was the show from a team that is well beyond their years. And I was just so happy that we are still progressing in the right way, right? We've had a couple of dodgy ones, a couple of games this year that have not gone our way and we've not really pulled through. But this was a game where we really stood up.
Definitely.
Mate, good to bad, the stats.
Yep.
What is on your mind?
Yeah, look, for me, it was a very even contest. If you go through and look at the numbers, in those general stat areas, they were pretty close. There were a few ups and downs within quarters, but by the end of the game, they were basically even. The only thing really that stood out was that the Tigers were a bit wasteful and ineffective in the second quarter, kicking 1-6 and 1-3 in the fourth when we weren't. Obviously, we ran away with it in the fourth there. But obviously some solo efforts from our emerging leaders, we've already touched on, really set the tone for a massive group effort with role players doing what they needed to do, and it was just really pleasing to see. Obviously, the best thing for me about the win was just being able to stick with them. They came back at us really, really hard in the third, got within 7, but and that's clawing back a 28-point lead, right? So they were coming at us really, really hard, and then we sort of weathered that push back, and then we had all that gas in the tank, desire in our bellies, came out, and we basically smashed them in the fourth. Yeah. To me, I said this earlier to you off before we started recording. It felt like it was the exact reverse of the D's game a couple of weeks ago, in that we fought our way back in to a dominant, pretty much dominant display by the D's, and then they just ran away with it and kicked clear and beat us by 50 or something, basically in the fourth. Yep. And that's what we did here, And so the fact, all our young players, as you've touched on, we were able to do that with all our injuries. It's just so. Yeah, I don't know. It's character building. I think I think a win like that, in the way in which we did it, is really, really. It's going to stick with these players for a long time, and hopefully, it gives them some more confidence, and we can roll on from there.
Yeah, I think your mention there, character building, is a really good way to kind of sum it up. Where this was a game where they kind of had to come in together, fight for it. This was not going to be given to them. We didn't have our best players out there. We were missing 3 insanely important and elite backmen that could all be fighting for an All-Australian if they play their cards right? This is how good either one of them are, and we're missing all of them. And so that backline, Foxy, Lloydie, Blakey, and then Will Gould, of course, had to just step up 3 steps over what they normally would do, play on men they shouldn't typically be playing on. This discoordination that would happen by missing all these key players and the general back there in Rampy. Man, just character building is a really, really good way to say it, Noddy. I think we walk away from this with a lot of confidence for the team that they were able to do things that we presumed, we always knew that they could. And we know that they can beat an opponent with diversity, and they just continue to do that. And it makes me really, really proud of them, because I think that's just kind of a trait of the Sydney Swans in this last few years, is to win when there was no win to be coming off it.
Well, yeah, just role playing. The fact that we've, due to those outs in our backline, we had to do some major reshuffling. And who goes back there? Cal Mills, captain. Yeah. No worries, guys. I got this. I don't need all the disposals. I could just go back to where I cut my teeth. Just in autopilot, just doing his thing.
Back to the old stomping grounds in the back line over here, no worries.
I mean, I think Papley was interviewed after the game, and he made specific mention to Millsy there, saying, everyone's just a role player, everyone knew what they had to do, and everyone did it. And I think that's pretty bang on, and I think Horse, echoed that sentiment. He was pretty happy, and also, touched on the fact that there was a lot of youth and a lot of inexperience, but yeah, we pulled through with the game plan and did it for each other. It was really pleasing. In terms of, okay, so there was this thing, I'm sure a lot of Swans fans saw it and heard it. There was a thing on Fox Footy the other night. I think it was given to them by Champion Data, where they get all their intellectually challenging stuff from. They're calling it the Premiership window, because basically the graph looks like a window, and it's a play on words because you're in the window. Look, it seems kind of so obvious. It's like, how is this even a reportable stat? But after 5 rounds, only the Bombers and the Swans are in the top 6 for both offense, as in points scored, and defense, points conceded. And this is the kicker: 15 of the last 17 premiers have been in the top 6 for these stat lines. Yeah, but I'm thinking, but there's probably more, a lot of teams that were in the top 8 that were also in that at times throughout the season that didn't win the flag. It's almost, for me, it seems like one of these things that doesn't really need to be said. But I guess the point is, if you're better at one than the other, you've got to be good at both. And that's sort of, I think what we've been really good at is we've been really, really good at defense. Some weeks we've struggled with goals, others not. But that balance, and Horse has been able to do that through that, that really good backline that we've had that got completely rearranged this week. And the fact that we still came out pretty well, in that is just sort of a credit to, the plan B. It worked. Horse gets criticised for not having a plan B sometimes, and this was to a T a plan B. I mean, it's probably a plan C as well, like with the personnel we had to roll with. But
I think the champion data, I think it's funny, like you mentioned it. So we're saying the obvious is you have to be really good defense and offense. Okay,
basically, yeah.
You need to be top 6, like top 6, third or so of the competition.
Yeah,
fair enough. Like, I'm not too surprised about that. It's one of those. I think it's just one of those stats where it's easy to explain to someone, and it's easy to put up on the graph and put on the window, and you can explain the window and the concept of all that pretty easily. So Fox Footy is going to be apparently driving with this every week. So if your team has a bit of a blowout, loses against someone by a few because you've got some injuries, you'll slide out of this window, and then everyone's going to start panicking that you need to fix your defense or your offense for that week, and then everything just goes back to normal again. So I don't think it's a whole lot to pay attention to, other than it's a very interesting stat, and that 15 of the last 17 have all come from this style. Noddy, is that because they've not been counting it prior to that, or just because the trend kicked in around that time?
I think they've been counting it. I think this is just a new segment that they've found to be able to report, and that's what I mean. If you look at our games this year, we've had 3 games where we've scored over 100. And we've only had one game where we've conceded 100, and it's that blowout against the D's, right?
The D's, yeah.
Even that Port game was really close, right? 64-66. So, it just goes to show we're scoring quite well, even though, we've got a forward line that's sort of finding their feet as well, and with Buddy in and out, and, all that sort of discussion about, avenues to goal and what is actually our best team. But, what's really pleasing is how the backline was tested and how they stood up this week. And we're going to get into Nick Blakey soon, but man, that guy was unbelievable. But
my question on the last 17 years is kind of leading to about the time that contested ball became a big thing. So maybe a little bit before that, but where it became, they started shutting down the game. Rather, it wasn't just like free flowing goals like there arguably was just like in the early 2000s and whatnot. So I think maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I kind of, it seems like the contested ball, and now all of a sudden the ball's not moving. So you got to be really, it's not just one thing just to score heaps, because no teams can do that consistently week to week. You also need to have a balance, and okay. So you got to be good at all parts of the game. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Two-way running.
Yeah.
Mate, look, you go.
I was going to say, going back to the game though, there's a couple of moments there that it bothered me. Firstly, the punch in the face that Errol Gordon copped from Shai Bolton was
that was a bit cheeky, wasn't it? Yeah,
bit cheeky, yeah. But
I haven't heard anything about that. But yeah.
Errol got up, fair enough. But there's nothing MRO. Like, it's clearly on TV. Like, there's footage of it. Like, why has no one ever picked this up and said, yeah, look, he clearly hit the head. It was intentional. It was high. That's got to be at least a fine, or we're just not caring because he got back up and it's okay now. I didn't think that was the thing. I thought the whole point of the whole thing, we've spoken about this 100 times over, is if the intent was there, then that's enough to kind of penalize them for it.
Well, look, if we're talking about it now rather than later in the potty, I mean, I think Kemenidi from St Kilda has just been given like a 3 or 4 week ban for his hit on Murphy, and that was further away. It wasn't a clear image. I mean, I think the incident was worse, but I mean, nothing was even. It was like nothing happened. I don't know. I mean, look, I saw it. I don't know if it hit him in the face or it was a punch though. So I mean, the fact that nothing has been spoken about it is a little bit Rich.
Ordinary.
Richmond. Sorry.
Yeah. It's a bit Richmond. Yeah.
Hey,
nice
mate.
Yep.
The not so good. Okay, I have to say it. I think overall, Lads was pretty good.
Lads was very good.
Yep. Basically the good lad, right? And we'll talk about him in honourables. But I just have to say, his brain explosion. I was a little bit trigger happy. I do acknowledge to the bevy group. I think I said trade him immediately. Trade him out is what I think I wrote
at that moment.
At that moment, when he did the little catch and tap, like and they were pushing and pushing and pushing, and he just gives them a goal. I was like, oh, that was bad lads. We had the bad lads back for a moment.
Yeah, the good lad's been around for a year.
It's been a good lad year.
It's going to be a good lad year. A little bit of flashes of the bad lad, but it's nothing in terms of brain fades off the ball. Like no dodgy play off the ball. Like he's got his head straight, it looks like. He's tackling hard when he's got the ball, but he's doing just weird random things with the ball. So, it's funny because we won by 44 points. If we lost by 5, that would have been a totally different story. We'd be talking about this differently.
That's right. Well, mate, I don't know. There were a fair few favourite moments in the game, and we've got a fair few to spread around. So I don't know. All right, allow me to ask you, what were your favourite moments of the game?
Oh, I think my favourite moment would have been the Papley goal when I think it was Cunners were inside the 50, so centre square bounce. We get the clearance, go up forward. I think Cunners gets a tackle on someone. Ball gets loose. I think he gets a hand on it. Pass it to Heaney. Heaney passes it over to a screaming Papley coming in from the centre square. Takes 3 or 4 steps and slams it on his boot from about 45 out and scores the goal. It was like that was an electric goal, and that was. He booted it like 70 meters too. He gave it a proper thump, and then he of course sprinted faster than Usain Bolt straight after it, as he normally does. So that was my favorite goal of his. That was just skill,
and they were all pretty good goals. They were like 6 absolute pearlers, right?
Well, the one that Dill Garner gave it over to him, Dill should have just taken it and gone, "No, you've had enough, mate." And Heaney should have asked for the ball back anyway. But I'm glad he didn't. Yeah, they're all pretty good goals. Yeah.
Oh, mate, I've got 2 clear ones, and I won't go to any of Papley's because, as I said, they were all bloody brilliant.
Yeah.
But I've Corey's first goal. He joins that club. Well done. Was fantastic. I thought he had a pretty good game. Obviously, Chad was off the ground at the time, which was a bit of a happy, sad moment. But no, that was awesome to see, and love seeing the family in the crowd. The Warners there.
I know we're not talking about Papley, but also his play to break 2 tackles, I think, then to send the ball to get to Warner.
Yeah,
like another Papley moment. But yeah. Sorry.
I mean, there's going to be a lot of that.
Not here to make it about Papley, but
there is. Well, he kind of made it about himself.
He did it himself,
playing so damn well. Yeah. But the other one, okay, and this is gonna be a 2-part conversation. Was obviously Braden Campbell's amazing kick from long and on that really tight angle, which is Buddy-esque, obviously. But okay, the bevy this week were like, man, Braden Campbell needs a nickname. So we had a few options rolling around. We had Bazooka from Matt, which I thought was awesome.
I like Bazooka. Yeah.
Yep. I put my hat in the ring for Soup. As in Campbell's soup.
Campbell's soup, yeah.
Soup, yeah. I had to send a picture before I think anyone came along for the ride with me on that one. But
I wasn't sure where you're going with it because
you're like, Noddy's drunk. It's midday.
Yeah, because in baseball there was a guy called Soupan, and he was like, yeah, soup, and they make the call, soup, as they do for a number of different players in that.
We haven't had that call since Paul Roos. I think Paul Roos played for us, right? Roos, at the moment there's Bruce at Hawthorn, there's Bruce at the Dogs now, and then young Van Rooyen.
Yeah, that bothers me.
His name is at Melbourne. Wouldn't it be cool if we got like just a little soup in there? But anyway,
I kind of feel that's a little bit far-fetched, if you don't mind.
Campbell's soup. I mean, you probably have to be a certain age to realise that there's a brand of soup called Campbell's, but
it's an Andy Warhol thing as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
he did a pop art thing. Yeah,
pop art thing. Yeah.
Anyway, Andy, I don't know. Maybe I'm just going in circles here. No, don't worry
I think early on we heard Goulden talk about his mate, call him BC BJ maybe?
BJ, I think BJ. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, it was a fantastic goal. It was unbelievable. It was so cool. Anyway,
I like the bazooka. I'm a big fan of bazooka, but
obviously from his the kicking ability, it's like he cannonballs it, he bazookas
and that's not the only one, right? Didn't he kick it from like 70, 75 in the VF in one of the preseason games as well?
Yeah, that was huge. Bazooka Braden Bazooka Campbell, and then I'm going to be on the side saying,
it's got some ring in it.
All right, mate. Well,
okay, I got one more.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a favorite moment because just what it kind of meant to the Swans crowd. Will Gould coming on the field, full stop.
Yeah.
Right? Just when he came on, and we're watching from the telly, right? So we couldn't see when he actually ran on, the interchange that happened. We just saw him when the first time we saw a gentleman, this big burly man-child in the background that were like, that guy is too big to be Lizard. So it's clearly not Lizard. Who's that guy marking up? And it ended up being Will Gould. His absolute terror when the ball hit the ground and just almost falling out of his own feet. It felt like to me, it's one of those bad dreams when you're trying to run, you can't. And that feeling, that's what I imagine he was going through, right? That's the terror of playing at Gather Round in your hometown for the first time on an AFL pitch, given you've been meant to be there for the last couple of years and everyone's probably asking you day to day, when are you going to hit the seniors? But every single touch after that, he got better and better and better. Yeah, he had that kick out on a full, but fair enough, you got to sharpen it up. But he got better and better as the game got on and got more and more natural and kept up with the speed. And that, it just made me really happy that finally we got to see him on there. Firstly, that finally we get to see him on there. Secondly, we can stop talking about it. Is the other great thing. But just to have him finally, break through, mate, that's to me is a huge moment for like Swans fan, and we can all just move on with our lives and hopefully see him on the ground more often. But we'll talk about that in the replacement section.
Definitely, mate. I like that. That's good.
Right, mate.
I would just quickly,
please.
Chad had kicked, kicked 1-3 for the game. If he kicked 4, I think we'll touch on him in the next segment. But some of his run and guns, if there were goals on the end of that, they would have been just sensational. So slightly mischancy, but still thought that was he's showing really, really good signs.
Yeah. While we're at, I guess last week I think he missed 2 or 3 on the run, things that he would have in the past last year just nailed. So he'll sharpen it up. But the fact that he gets himself in a position to be able to do that, he's just got to nail that last kick. Then he's done all the hard part. He's just got to nail that last supposedly easy part. I don't play AFL, as you can tell.
That's he's kicked more behinds than goals, that's for sure. But I think he'll come good. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the Bob medal, which is our equivalent of the Bob Skilton medal. We give out 3, 2, 1 points to the best Swans player in each game, with this week the highest points receiving a winery tour and a round of golf with Paps, apparently.
All right.
I don't know how we're going to do this.
We'll have to get the green light there from Tom, but I'm sure
we'll call up Tom. We'll make some calls and we'll make it happen. So 3, 2, 1 points go. 3 points to Papley, 2 points to Blakey, and 1 point to Heaney. The Heat. Mate. Right, mate, do you want to talk about Papley a little bit more?
Oh, man, it's basically Rain Man. The numbers he produced in this game were just we've written them out, and it looks like the most difficult mathematical equation. It's just full. Okay, 6 goals, 2 from 9 shots. That's 67%. 2 in the third quarter, 4 in the fourth. But he was effective in the first and second quarters around the ground through clearances and some of these score assist, goal assists and score involvements. And that's my next point. 13 score involvements game high. I think it was 5 more than the next person in the game.
Crazy. Yeah.
25 disposals at 64%, 12 of those contested, 5 clearances, 6 inside 50, 686 meters gained.
Massive, like numbers, video game stuff.
Unbelievable. He just looked scintillating. Like he was just, even in the first half when he hadn't kicked any, he was playing really well. You could tell that he was switched on. And really, we needed a game like this from one of our players, because, obviously after Amadi goes off, where do the goals come from? But yeah, I don't think anyone expected this. And there was the, that thing that they produced that obviously came from Champion Data again, the highest rated game of any player this year, in terms of impact. The other players being Gawn, Max Gawn, Jeremy Cameron twice, and our Errol, but like cleared them. I think it was like 30 points or something, and 17 to 20 is deemed like elite.
Yeah.
And he was like 30. So
just like a blistering game. Like we call him the spark, or what would we say? The spark,
the spark,
like when he got going, the team got faster.
Yeah.
They ran more. We were harder in the contest. We were better. When he started going, you saw the whole team start to wind up with him. Like, he definitely is the bloody spark in that team. And it was a beautiful finishing of the game. He was one of only a few players to score 0 in the first half and 6 in the second half. And funnily enough, I think there's like 6 players that have done it all up, maybe less, 5. And Buddy Franklin had done it twice before. This is like in company. In company.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'll add to that, mate. Joined obviously the Swans had put a pretty cool article out saying they joined the record books for most goals in the game at the Adelaide Oval, which is obviously only since 2014 because they'd played at Football Park prior to that. But in terms of Swans, Sydney Swans era, Plugger and Bazza have kicked 6 against the Crows, but that was again at Football Park. Papley became the 28th Sydney Swan to kick 6 goals in a game, and the 75th player to do so, if you include the grand old history of South Melbourne. So just a game, honestly like just one for the ages. It was an unbelievable game, that like individual game he had. It was just like face meltingly good. It was so good.
It got me up. It got me screaming. So really, Papley wins a winery tour and a game of golf with himself.
With himself. So the fact that he already did that, this is sort of a like we're sort of awarding him with the thing he's already done, because So
for the Swans fans out there that didn't know, he actually took off to the Barossa thereafter. I think for the next day they got the day off.
Yeah.
Did some winery tours and did whatever the hell he wants on his day off, as he's allowed to. So he's already taken his prize before we were able to give it to him. So a little bit awkward, Papley. I mean, we're going to have to call you and tell you something you already knew, but hey, we got that done. All right, the 2 points to Blakey. Now, if you don't mind, Noddy.
You go.
I was pushing.
We had to convince you. I mean, you were like, Blakey deserves a very considered, you almost had him at 3.
I did have him on 3. So, and so the way that it works, again, for everyone at home, is we have the Bevy crew. There's a few of us, of course. Steve-O, Jules, Brett, Matt, Super Sam fan, Sam, and yourself and me. We all get together and this brains trust basically comes together and we talk a lot about football and we put our votes down. My vote definitely went
a lot about it's basically all day, every day. So.
It takes up 99% of my brain power just to explode all my damn football stuff onto a page. Yeah. But I was a big advocate for getting Lizard on the 3 points. Just being very serious here. Like, given what he had to do, playing on someone for pretty much for the first time in some time, because he's normally allowed to run loose. He takes the intercepts, he does the kick-ins, and he's always there to kind of link up with players and get some run on through the centers and make some sharp kicks. He has his whole game is designed for him to have a little bit of room to move, to then make those cool decisions, put that great boot that he has on. For the first time in some time, he had to be the anchor, and that's not his game. He was a forward, for crying out loud. Tell me a more free-flowing position. Like, forward is it. You make up the rules, the guy follows you. He's had to transform his entire game back to get to this place. So to see him do that and do it as well as he did with 30 disposals at 93%, like 13 intercepts, like intercept possessions. This kid was unbelievable and kept the game close when we needed to be close. It was him. He did that. And then, of course, Papley then just destroying the mids and then taking off and scoring all his goals and us just turning it on from the back of that. That's why I was such a big advocate for Lizard, mate. That's why I wanted to make sure that everyone knew out there that we are not taking his role lightly. He was very, 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 very good, mate. What do you have to say?
He was awesome, mate. Like everything you've said there is 100% correct. Like, even the mental pressure that, I'm sure he would have.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's going in there. Obviously, there's older heads in there, right? There's Lloyd. We can't forget there's Lloyd, there's Cunningham, there's Fox, right? Who have a bit more experience in terms of age. Well, certainly Lloyd and Cunningham. But just the fact that he switched so seamlessly to that role that you just described and did it so well. Career high 13 intercept possessions, and his accuracy is 93%. I'm pretty sure that was first for Sydney for anything over 20 touches. It's pretty. If you think over the last few weeks, there's been a few clangers that he's made coming out of kick-ins or kick-in play-on sort of thing, but you just really didn't see it this game, and he really was He was just the voice of authority back there. And I was a bit worried that maybe his slight, depending on who he'd matched up on, he might get thrown around a bit, but he seemed to just relish it. Like he nailed it. It was a very, very good game. And you're right. Like there was a lot to think about in terms of 3 and 2, but I just think Papley edged him in terms of the impact and the record breaking. But Blakey's game was just fantastic and well worthy of 2.
Yeah, he was a competitor. I mean, he competed the whole game, and that's what I just love about it. Like, we know what he's like. We know what his skill sets are. We know how good he can be, and it's just far out, man. Like, he's probably, it's kind of to say underrated. I think most of AFL is well aware of him.
He's just showing more and more and doing different things, and I think that's what's surprising. Like you kind of know, you get it. He pretty much made a name for himself last season with his run and gun off the halfback line, and that was one of the really big reasons we were able to transition from D50 into 50 and then score. But like this role that he played this week, it's a new role, as you said, from forward to back, halfback. Played a bit of time on the wing just after forward, but didn't really suit him. So that's when they moved him back. But then to play the role that he was playing, which is effectively a fullback, but sort of doing a bit of everything while he was there. It was unreal, man. Like it was a bloody good game.
So much fun to watch. Yeah, I'll watch it a third time for sure, that game. So unfortunately, he comes second. He doesn't get to go on a winery tour with Papley. He gets nothing because the budget at the bevy is pretty low. So sorry, mate. Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to 1 point. We have Isaac the Heat Heaney.
Yeah,
mate. He's been a little bit of the whipping boy lately. Not been playing his best game. Everyone's been calling him out a bit. We've spoken about it quite a bit to try to work out how we're going to get him more into the game. He got in. He got himself involved, and he played really well. What have you got to say about it?
Well, yeah, you're right. I think it just clicked, and he was switched on, and he fought hard like he does. But I think sometimes it's just confidence. He kicked a couple of goals in the end, and I think that sort of fed off that. Obviously it was throughout the game, but he was very effective in defense. His running again was elite, back and forth. 20 disposals, 15 contested, which is game high. 8 score involvements, second in Sydney. It's just a game that we know he can play, that he hasn't really been producing of late. But that shows me that game that he played, reassures me, because as you've been talking about over the potty the past couple of weeks, genuinely wondering if there's if he's carrying an injury or if there's something else going on, because not really getting those sort of Heaney type games out of him. Certainly, in terms of our second highest goal kicker last year, 49 goals, it hasn't been tracking like that so far this season, but he just worked really, really hard this game, and he was one of our, one of these emerging leaders. Would you say, as a 26-year-old, he was the whatever it was,
fifth oldest player on the ground?
Player.
Yeah,
crazy. But yeah, he deserved 1 point this week in the Bob, mate, for sure.
Yeah, and also 7 tackles. Yeah, I was about to drop that in as well. So he was doing it everywhere. A couple of little moments, like so the intercept. He intercepted a pass between the two backmen at one point to score his first goal. At that point, I think it was his first goal at that point. I think that loosened him up, and that's a pretty confident thing to do, to just run between two players and just try to knock the ball out of their hands. You know, when our job and the whole what we do in the front line is to keep pressure on, and that's man on man more so. So to see him do that, and I was like, oh, hello, like, is this a cocky Heaney do we see in front of us? And it seemed like his hands got softer at that point, because his hands have been a bit more concrete. They haven't been taking those speckies and that he typically would. That's, you know, beyond the normal human being ability to. Yeah. So, yeah, I was really, just started seeing that, and then, took on the game. And as the game got more and more, tougher, so did he, and definitely deserves the 1 point. We've got a couple of names we're going to mention next that were, arguably could have got a point, but I think Heaney was definitely third on the ground for sure.
Yeah, mate, and I'll launch into it. Like, obviously, Chad was one of those guys who probably could have been in the 3-2-1, and I think I was more in the Chad camp than the Heaney camp. But like, having watched the game again, Heaney definitely does it. Like, he had a very, very good game. But as I mentioned earlier, Chad's efficiency, kicking efficiency, has been pretty low lately, and it was pretty low in this game. It was like 33% or something. He had like 18 kicks. He had a stack of the footy, kicking it really well, just missing the mark. But that's fine. There's going to be moments like that with him. 26 disposals at 54%, 12 contested, kicked 1 goal, 3. Those 3, I think all 3 behinds basically were he could have run on and kicked them, and they would have been highlights reel, like we know he's capable of. Yeah. 8 score involvement, 7 clearances, which was second best for Sydney. Like, he had a pretty good game.
Great game,
all things considered. Yeah.
Yeah, he's quite unlucky to not get the point. If we split it, that'd be great. But yeah, no half points going out there.
Too ruthless at the bevy, mate.
Yeah, ruthless at the bevy. Budget's low. The ones that I'd probably point out would be that remaining bits of the back line there, Lloydie and Fox.
Yep.
Fox was, I'd say, just solid, like perfect. Yeah. I don't recall him doing anything that was questionable in the entire game. I think he was just really, really, really good. He did everything he needed to do. He was everywhere he needed to be. Second in 1%ers with 6. Of course, Blakey got 8 of them just to show off. 17 touches for himself. So Foxy had a very, very nice game. And Lloydie, Lloydie is always Lloydie. He seems to just be getting better somehow. But not necessarily with the ball this time around. Also defensively, he was like strong. He was matched up against Revolt as Revolt was rubbing his forearm into his head and not getting a free kick for his effort. And do we want to talk about it? All right, Lloydie did score a goal, by the way.
Oh, God.
That was a goal.
Oh,
so
my God.
If we've forgotten at home,
oh, my God.
He kicked it. It touched some of the, I don't know, the netting that's around the soft part of the post, and it was
disorganized marketing material. Okay, imagine if we had lost that game by a goal. Imagine if Richmond had lost that game by a goal in that fashion. Can you imagine the blowback? Unbelievable.
Oh my God, that was so yeah.
Okay, so it's part of the it's part of the post. It's got to be behind. We're not fighting that.
The rule is if it's part of the post or the netting of the post or whatever the part of the post, then it's deemed as hitting the post. So on paper, it is a behind, but it's not a behind because that should have been taped up. This is the AFL. This is not some 2-bit operation, for crying out loud. Come on, can we?
It's the equivalent of
duct tape.
Duct tape, and they did, and they went out and did that afterwards. But imagine if there was like a big wasp's nest just sitting on the goalpost. Lloydie comes through, kicks one of his career best goals. It hits the wasp nest. They go flying off. Behind. Sorry,
you know what I was thinking there?
What the hell are the wasps doing there?
It was a wasp nest. Chances are Rampy would have jumped up and touched it and hugged it somehow. Yeah, that's another option.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, he wasn't playing, so that
wasn't playing. Couldn't.
We were safe for Rampy not to headbutt a wasp nest, but yeah, we could have kicked one into it. So yeah. Anyway, Lloydie also kicked the goal. I just want to point that out. So, mate, Anyone else do you want to mark up as a good player for the game?
Mate mentioned Bazooka before for that goal. He's looking more and more, comfortable. Goulden, very good game. I want to point out two players though. Cunners,
Go for it.
who has been under a little bit of criticism lately for just performing his role. He kept Dan Rioli to 22 disposals for the game, but it was 9 to half time. This guy's been averaging 26 disposals a game from rounds 1 to 4. So Cunners, I think he did a bloody good job on him. 21 pressure acts, which was second
Really good, yeah.
After Chad Warner, by the way, 37. I forgot to mention that earlier.
Offensively and defensively, go Chad.
Yeah. So I thought, Cunners had a good game, and hopefully silenced some of the critics. But obviously with all of our outs, he's got to be in there. He's basically one of the players that's propping up our average age and experience. So the other guy was Robbo, Matty Roberts. So he had 14 touches at 92%. So, other than that Pickett spin away, which was a bit of a lucky bounce, I just think he's looking more and more comfortable and he makes very good decisions.
Yeah, he does. He is exciting. He's the next set of guys that we're very excited to see with a bit more football under them. So, yeah, good. On the Cunners piece, I think playing the backline is his natural spot, right?
Yeah.
We've always got that forward, like, dare I say, Wicks, Bell, those gents who just get slammed by everyone in Swans world because they don't get their 10 or 12 touches and whatever. But Cunners was in that same spot. We know Cunners is a good player. There's no doubt about that. He's a very good player. He's an excellent player of football. And he was getting those low numbers as well. So it just could be that I'm starting to think it's just the role.
It's the role, yeah.
It's the role that's what's important.
As you rightly mentioned, when Bell was still playing for us, when he was producing those games, and there was a lot of moaning on the socials from the Swans fans. It's the same kind of thing. If they've got that role, that's the role. And Steve-O mentions all the time, we don't know what the role is. He could be playing his game perfectly, executing perfectly. We just don't know what it is. But when I look at Cunners, and you think, okay, you've got him in the back line, but really he can play any line. There's a couple of players who can do that. Like he's one of them. I reckon Fox is one of them.
Yeah, Millsy,
obviously. So you can comfortably give him, defender / mid / forward, and all of a sudden he can help you out when you need to fix something. Really. If he's not playing a role, he's in there to provide an advantage if it needs to be called on throughout the game because of his versatility and his pace. He's genuinely fast. He's still a massive, really good runner. We can't overlook this, but anyway, I just wanted to point that out. That's my only point about Cunners. He's playing a role.
I agree.
I think he's a lock.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's why he makes such a fantastic emergency too, because no matter what happens in the game, he goes. If we need someone in the back line, he'll send them there. If he needs someone in the forwards, go. If he needs a winger, even just throw him into the wing. He can play pretty much anywhere. So
he was kept out of the team last year by Clark and and Clark's amazing clamp job that he did. For the halfway through the year, he basically just stole that spot from Cunners.
Like industry flagging clamp role was the only thing that kept Cunners out. Like. He was stopping a kid from getting 40 touches a game, went down to like single digits. That's how good Ryan Clark was to keep Cunners out. So I think we've spoken about it.
We'll talk about Clark in a moment, I think. When we talk about.
Yep. All right, mate. That's the players. I mean, we could talk about a few more, but we shouldn't because we do need to kind of continue on. Otherwise, this body would be a 3-hour go. Not that I'd too worried about that.
Here, mate. Yeah, I think we got to get to bed at some point, but I could keep going, mate.
All right, injuries post game, MRO and replacement, and we'll talk about what's going on for next week's game along the way. Injuries wise, of course, we've spoken about it. The footy gods are awful. Amadi with the hammy, he's out for a couple of months, a few months at this point, mate. That's awful. Like just as he's starting to get going, and we're starting to see some really good football out of him and starting to do all the things that we wanted to see out of him, doing it really well. But he's out.
Yeah, it's brutal. Otherwise, I think Heaney had a pinch in the neck, got checked out. It was all good. Obviously, played on and was got the 2 points from us. Lads went off at some point but also came back on and played out the game.
Mm.
He seems to sort of feel the hits a little bit. He's a little bit like, and this is no, character criticism, assassination. But you know how Paddy Dangerfield sometimes can just sort of let things be about him. Like he gets a bit of a knock, and then he's like, oh, and then all the cameras are on him. I feel like Lads has a little bit of that, but I don't want to speak too prematurely. Like I hope he's okay, because I think he's still a critical player for us. Obviously we're going to talk about Hickey being a few weeks away. I think Horses came out tonight saying Rampy and Tommy McCartan Rampy and Buddy are still probably a week away, and they're ruling Paddy and Tommy out again for concussion protocols.
And I also saw that Hickey looks like he may be coming close to ready, but it looks like he's 36 years old and they want to see if he can play some football before he comes in.
So there you go. Lads is like super important for us. So we obviously don't want him to go down with anything that further compromises the structure. But righto, so if that's the butcher's bill, mate, what are we thinking?
So we lose. So we still, from everything we know right now and from what Horse said this week, we don't have a Rampy. We don't have a Buddy. We have no Paddy. We have no Tommy still. We don't have Hickey back. So we're basically looking at the same team we had this week with Noah Marty as well. So we not only do we have to fill in those spaces that made us gush and lose ourselves for 40 minutes so far or whatever we've been talking about, and we've also got to fill in another spot. So Aaron Francis is the first name that comes to mind when I think of a replacement for a Marty, mate. From what I heard on the post-game presser when Horse was gushing over Will Gould and how well he did and coming in and relatively short notice, he did kind of lay in there a little bit that Francis was also, if anything, I don't know, in front of Gould. It's kind of the way that he mentioned it. But Francis seemed like he had a bit of a sore foot or something, and he didn't look like he was going to get up. But I assume that Francis walks in.
That's fair enough, given his AFL experience and his, his I guess pedigree, in terms of where he was picked in his draft year. But yeah, look, I think. But we spoke about this today with the bevy, like for most of the day, knowing that there's been these announcements already this early in the week, so that we can have a bit of clarity. And obviously, we're going to talk about our opponents soon, but and their outs. But yeah, look, I think I made the point that I feel like Francis comes in for Amadi. Because he's kicked 3, he's been playing pretty well. We've seen him live, you and I, a couple of times in the VFL.
He's impressive
this year. He's running well. He's looking good. He's a level above VFL.
Yeah, you can tell he's clearly the AFL player playing in the VFL team.
Definitely,
clear
it's
as hell.
Sticks out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
But I guess the opening and the opportunity hasn't been there. But now with Amadi, sadly out with that shocking hamstring and tendon issue. There's probably a spot there, considering we're coming up against taller and heavier players than we did against the Tigers in Geelong. And then if you've got Blakey and Gould as our 2 talls, and Gould's effectively a second gamer, it's a lot of pressure, I think, to put on a young guy. So I do think Francis comes in, but then that means someone's got to make way or shift to the 23rd, shift to the sub. So who would that be?
Yeah, look, I don't see. Look, it wouldn't surprise me if Gould does still go to the bench to begin with,
as in the sub.
I don't know why. I genuinely don't know why off the top of my head why I think this, because I think Francis is been up until this point in the VFL definitely been moved more towards the forwards.
Yeah,
he scored him. I think he's the highest goal scorer we've got. I think 7 goals in 3 games.
Is that just because we don't actually have any forwards at that level?
Legitimate, but I mean, if we're using the VFL as as building the players up, we wouldn't be playing him out of position. I think we look. He can swing. He's in the air. He's very, very good, and that's one thing that we may be missing massively by having Amadi out. is someone who can maybe get up there a little bit more. So, but it does also mean that McLean probably needs to chop out in the ruck a whole lot more now with Amati out. So Francis probably finds himself maybe more time where McLean is kind of thing, and they kind of switch around. I don't know. That's the way I look at it. I don't know how else to really pick it. What do you think there?
Look, I tend to think that given that we're coming up against heavier bodies, I think we're probably going to keep Gould in the 22 and then bring Francis in, but then move someone like Corey, who played very well for a first gamer. He also showed a lot of poise on the ball, and I thought he's going to be an absolute cracker. But
very
maybe
athletic.
Yeah, very athletic. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's got some good footy IQ. He's an athlete. He's going to run. But maybe you just put him in as the sub, and he can also play a few different roles, on the wing, roll forward. He can probably play off the halfback if needed. So he brings that sort of versatility, and also a very young player. But obviously Gould is a bit more, he's probably a bit bigger and able to, take the hits. I mean, we're talking about Tom Hawkins. We may as well just get on to the opposition.
Get straight into the Cats. Like the Cats are big. Look, I was just about to say, one of the ways that I did notice them at the beginning of the season getting beaten was the speed. Like they are not a quick team in a lot of places, and it did look like they were labouring quite a bit. It didn't look like they came into the season like entirely ready to go. So maybe having some speedy guys like a Corey Warner is really good for us, right over maybe some height in some certain places. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm heading anyway.
So you think Francis comes in for Gould and Gould goes to sub?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm heading.
Francis comes in for Amati, but takes Gould's position in the back line. Gould goes to sub again, as he was last week.
Yeah, and probably gets game time no matter what happens. You know what I mean? Like he gets on at halftime or whatever, and make sure he gets some time in his legs. But one thing we have to point out about Gould, like he was in a moon boot like 10 days ago. Like he's had a bad ankle. Noddy and I both witnessed him like not going for sprints and not getting up when in VFL games, and we've been like, oh no, he's not looking the best. So he probably pulled through this game, and I don't know, maybe he's still carrying a little bit of an injury, and he probably doesn't need to be on the foot as much as he would like if he's going to be the long termer in that spot now. With not knowing what's going to happen with Paddy.
VFL Player of the Year, so he's banked it. Like he's earned this, and this is the time to get his foot in the door. And they gave he's in there now. So it's just would be a shame if his body is which is what we were thinking before they named the team for the Tigers. With the whispers of Francis and Gould not being available was a bit but then obviously it's come to pass as it has. The other two names we should probably mention at this point are Clamps, as we've spoken about, or Gus Bus, Angus Sheldrick. But I think you said something about stethoscopes and heart issues or something. What happened there, mate?
Yeah, so we've got a Twitter Brains Trust. Twitter's a really good place for football if anyone's interested in seeing another social media out there that's not something like Facebook or Insta or whatever. And the crew there was mentioning that, Gus was kind of coming off and had a doctor with a stethoscope on him between his outages there. So I don't know what that was all about, but he kept playing and he played the game, so we presume that everything's okay. The doctors aren't going to put a stethoscope on someone and then just let them have a friggin' aneurysm. So
too many Red Bulls for the Gus Bus. No,
the Gus Bus is running too hot. Yeah,
running too hot.
I mean, he had running too hot. Yeah,
two awesome games in the preceding weeks. Like racking it up. So he was really the next in line. And then I think he only had 10 touches or something to Clark's 25 against in that smashing North, beat us by 42 points or whatever it was. So one
name, mate, that does come up that a lot of Swans fans are a bit frustrated at if we're going to go down that path. Will Hayward, Wilbur.
Oh, yeah.
Hasn't played his best football so far this season.
He's a little bit like Heaney, right? He hasn't really...
Very similar to Heaney, in very similar ways too. Hasn't kicked straight as well. Like I think he's sitting at like less than 30%, I think 28% or so. He had a couple of nice touches on the weekend. Of course, he does a lot of good stuff off the ball as well with the ball.
Leading up
typically.
the ground. Yeah, some good marks.
Yeah. So maybe, you never know, maybe Wilbur is a place where Francis kind of steps in. But we do generally have a problem in that back line.
You're taking away one person, another person who could potentially, if he's on, kick 3 or 4 goals in a game.
100%. Yeah, I agree with you.
Risky. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
We still need to be able to kick goals.
Wilbur's definitely in our top team, even when he's playing average. So it's, a bit of a tough one. But yeah, that's another name that could come up as well.
Well, we'll find out on Thursday with bated breath as always.
Yeah, well, they've got a couple of injuries, mate. Do you want to talk those through?
Who's this?
The Cats.
The Cats. Well, Stanley and Stengel, I believe. I think there's an arm, and I'm not sure what Stanley is, but they're pretty big.
Broken eye socket.
Eye socket. Wow. Okay, take that.
Serious stuff. Yeah.
He's looking too hard at the umpires. But obviously they've got enough depth and structure to be not too phased with that, I think. Obviously losing Stengel is a blow because he's a genuine goal scorer. Stanley, I think they could cover with Blitzovs and Radaglia, but and then Gaz Rowan's coming back into the team after suspension. So, I mean, mate, look. The Cats started, and you mentioned it. They started pretty slow, right? 0 wins, 3 losses. Hasn't been done in 47 years after winning a grand final the following year to start a season 0-3, 47 years. So hats off to the Cats. Suck shit. But obviously they're starting to purr again, aren't they? They're getting their confidence back. The AFL's helped them with a bit of kind scheduling. The Suns, the Hawks and Eagles over the last 3 weeks. No one predicted the Suns beating the Cats, but there you go. But they have legitimately smashed the Hawks and the Eagles.
Yeah.
So they're sitting in 10th. They've got 2 wins, 3 losses. As Jules pointed out to us today in the Bevy chat, they're unfurling the grand final flag for the first time this year, as it's the first time they've played at GMHBA Stadium since it all happened since
great
it all
timing.
went down. Yep. So I don't know. Look, they're going to have a mental advantage for sure. You would think. I don't know.
Yeah, you'd think so. I mean, we typically play well at Cardinia. What I love about Cardinia is the whole football world talks about Cardinia and the SCG being the smallest grounds that could ever possibly be conceived in football. It's really not that much smaller, right? Can we all just calm down, right?
It's skinnier. It's skinnier for sure.
It's skinnier, yeah. But yeah, it's not going to, it doesn't transform the team that much, I don't think. But nonetheless, we have a really good record there. Probably because the dimensions are closest to the SCG, although, 1.5 meters different than some other grounds as well. So whatever. We play well there, we'll take it. But yeah, look, they beat the Suns and the Hawks, Eagles, grand. I mean, sorry, no, the Suns beat them. So that was tidy. Yeah. So
they lost the first 3 games of the year and then just beat the Hawks and the Eagles in the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. So they're starting, they got an easier run coming up to us. And during the preseason chat, I think you and me spoke about it, and that we're like, by round 6, which is where we're going to get up to, by playing the Cats, that was going to give us a decent indication, we felt, of how the team was going. Because we presumed that the Cats were going to be dangerous. We presumed that they were going to still be quite strong, that they were coming out of the blocks really hot, and that's absolutely not happened at all. So I don't really know what to take about this game, other than 2 teams that are missing a couple of important players, but they're neither team kind of really running with it. Us because we just don't have the players that make up our best 22, and the Cats because it just doesn't look like they just hit the straps going. So I don't really know, mate. I mean, there's a couple of key matchups that are important. Jeremy Cameron is arguably the best player in football right now. He's just burning it up. So
unbelievable.
Yeah, he's very, 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 very good. Even to the point where people are talking about him having a Brownlow, like freaking 4 rounds into the season. That's how good he's been playing. So we probably, you imagine, and this is what Matt mentioned as well, I think he reminded us, Foxy plays really well on it.
Well, yeah, he did
play really well on him on the grand final. Yeah.
Shut him out for a while and then came into it, obviously. But I think Fox has to go to Jazz. It's Hawkins I'm more worried about. Like Blakey,
for sure.
Blakey's what, like 20 kilos lighter?
Oh, mate, I reckon more than that. Like Blakey's
how heavy is Tomahawk these days? 125.
102.
He's basically a second
Front
rower in
rower.
rugby union. Yeah, well, he could probably play loose head prop, but yeah,
I'm
I
looking
mean,
it up right now.
that's why I'm thinking like it's got to be a combo of Francis and Gould. Like you've got to have some heavy bodies back there. Obviously, when there's a ball up in their forward 50, he's going to slot into that ruck role. So Lads is going to take a bunch of that heat as well. But yeah,
so he's got 23 kilos on Blakey.
23. That's
23 kilos.
That's a couple of dumbbells right there, mate. So
I don't know if I could lift 23 kilos. No, I think I can. But it's just that's not the matchup we want. Yeah, so I agree with you. I think a bigger body like a Will Gould or whatnot. But yeah, he's a super smart player, old Tomahawk. He knows how to get around, and he scores some goals out of what do you call it? The throw-ins as well. So that's also something a bit scary. It's hard to match up with him.
He burnt us very early in that first quarter in the grand final, right? And then that was one of the reasons we found it hard to come back. So, look, I mean midfield as well, right? They've got Danger, they've got Isaac Smith. Excuse me. I think Atkins is running through there. Obviously, they've lost Selwood, the soul of Geelong. So. Yeah, Guthrie, but I think he's been down on last year. We're talking about Cam Guthrie, not Zach.
Yeah,
because I think Zach's been playing pretty well out of the back line.
Yeah, the roles have changed. Like I was like, oh, it looks like Zuthrie's playing pretty well. So that's nice.
Zuthrie, yeah.
Zuthrie.
Obviously, Stewart, Duncan's pretty fit again. Tui, De Koenig, Radigalia. They've got pretty good players and really good role players all across the ground. Brad Close can bob up and kick a bag if you're not watching.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So they're dangerous, and I think they really need this. It's their first game at home. The Cats next 4, Essendon away, inverted commas, MCG down the road. Adelaide at home, Richmond again, inverted commas, away, and then Fremantle away. So they've got a pretty tough month ahead of them, really.
Yeah, they do. I think we're at the beginning of it, right? So they've that's a lot of that's
5-week block of challenge. So
yeah, Freo's not been turning it on. I didn't think they would this year. They got no forward. The Richmond is a bit of a shocker, but they may get some of those injuries coming back. Adelaide's been playing really well, but they can't defend for life of them. Essendon, yeah, I don't know what to say about Essendon. I think everyone's kind of getting a bit too excited about them, but.
Just ask any Essendon fan.
I think that Essendon fans, if we just take a second here, Essendon fans are the most the poor people have been properly smashed around.
Don't call them poor people.
I feel bad for them.
No. There's nothing worse than an up and about Bombers out. No. They're just like Carlton. They're just like Collingwood. Don't give them anything. Just because they've been down for a while, don't give them. Because the second they win, that's all.
That's true. The second they even get some kind of success, they'll let us know about it. But I know, they've had a hard run of it, and they don't make it any easier on themselves by getting a Scott, not the good Scott, but the ordinary Scott to freaking coach them. Should be interesting. The same Scott that created Descent, remember? That's the guy who's now running your coaching at Bombers. So good luck to you. All the best. Mate.
So because of that, it's going to be a tough one. How are you feeling? What do you think? I mean, I'm not going to tip, but
I don't tip anymore after the Bombers game from last year. I'll stop doing that forever. I would just generally, I think it's going to be just a really hard matchup in the back line. We got, if we're honest with ourselves, of course, no Lynch made an enormous difference to that forward line. I don't know if Lynch was going to be the 44-point difference. I don't think so. I absolutely don't think so. But I do know that it would have been a lot more hell to play. And also, Lynch also gets up the ground and does some pretty good things further up when he has to. So we got away with that a little bit. And so I think this week is going to be a proper look into how our backline is going with some 2 monsters in Jezza and Tomahawk. They're crazy good. Yeah, it's going to be scary, mate.
We're going to be pretty much the same side as last week.
Yeah.
Also, this against God, I've had a complete mind blank. What review is this?
Tigers.
Oh my God, what time is it? It's pretty late, mate. Yeah, but so I think that this is going to be, the challenge. We're coming up against a very experienced team who probably found their mojo at home for the first time, unfurling the flag. My heart says, I want to smash these bastards.
Yeah.
But my head says, we're going to have to put it on for 4 quarters and everyone play their role for us to even stay in the game, I think. So
I want our young guys to remember how it felt that grand final and just to go in there and just start breaking things. Like that effort, that it's hard. I don't want to say effort. I don't think that there was no effort. I just think they just felt just outdone, right? I just want them to go out there and just absolutely compete hard, like go nuts. And that's the impact of that is most important to me, I think.
Yeah. Again, for someone who's watched the grand final 3 times, we had a bad first quarter and a bad third quarter.
Lived it and then watched it a couple of times after that. It's not been. We've
just got to stay in the game, like good teams can. And then obviously there's a different scale to this game. It's not the big it's not the big stage, but we're younger than we were that day, and we're at their home deck. And we're up against it. It's going to be a big challenge. So we just want what we want every week as Swans fans, I think, is just effort and playing that Bloods type of footy. One in, all in, go hard, and our best is going to be good enough to challenge anyone.
Yeah, I think our best is better than theirs at this point.
It's possible. I mean, on the record, we're ahead of them in the ladder. So it's true.
And if we had our pieces of the puzzle, then more so. But we've shown we can do it, mate. Okay, let's start wrapping this up because it's been a long potty. Gil McLachlan is apparently meant to leave soon, and we don't know what's going on. So we know that apparently it's down to just 2 names: Andrew Dillon, General Counsel and Operations bloke, and what's her name? Kylie Watson Wheeler. Disney exec and Bulldogs Prez. Apparently it's come down to pretty much just those 2.
Okay.
I don't care. I just want the best person to run it, whatever. I don't know enough about either of these 2, or their policies, or their personalities to know whether either of them are going to do anything particularly special.
My question would just be, do you hate Tasmania? And are you going to receive any kickbacks on the construction contracts? No, I'm kidding. I speculate.
Hi, Kylie. Please sit down. Tassie, how do you feel about Tassie? Well, I'm not a big fan of it. There's the door, like kind of thing. Is that what you're suggesting?
That's my basically litmus test. That would be my interview. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Look, I don't have a say in either one of them, but I just know that, like I said to Steve-O as well, like I don't know, a lot of effort goes into this game, and the fact that I don't know who's going to be running it soon enough makes me nervous. So I would like to see how this ends up. Mate, some news out of the AFLW, out of season.
Yeah, Colo Reardon, so obviously retired at the end of last year. He'd be a pretty handy role player right now, to be honest. But he's been announced as assisting with the coaching of the AFLW team in Scott Gowan's absence. Obviously health related. So that's pretty good news that he's stuck around and he's in the club still, because I think he was a pretty good clubman by all accounts. So that's pretty cool to hear and see.
Yeah, lovely. And of course, Scott Gowan's out for prostate cancer. So gents out there, go get your prostate checked. It is important for all of us. Number 1 killer of men. And you've got one more thing here.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just explain the background to this. So when the Warner brothers were announced that they were going to play, the Swans did a pretty cool article on all the brothers that have ever played for South and Sydney. And there was a section here said, or Joe Scanlon, player 353, played 148 games from 1923 to 31. Paddy Scanlon played player 316, played 100 games from 1920 to 26. Merv Scanlon, player 360, played 2 games in 1924. Were they brothers? If you can help, please contact media@sydneyswans.com.au. I have a colleague at work who had previously told me he's related to these guys. As in,
oh my goodness,
grandfather and uncle sort of thing. Great uncle,
Yeah.
grand uncle, just a really grand uncle.
Just a
whatever
grand guy.
that is.
Top
So
dude.
he obviously I sent him a screen grab and said, mate, let him know. So he contacted the media at Sydney Swans. It bounced, didn't work. I was like, look, just call Declan at memberships. Declan is a superstar. So he's gotten through. He's confirmed that they were indeed brothers. And they were basically South royalty back in the day. A colleague tells me that I believe it was Joe, who's the grandfather, was involved in the 1933 premiership. Didn't play, but was on the match committee. So was in the thick of it in the glory days, the heydays.
Wow!
But he says Merv Scanlon, total ring-in. Don't know who he is. So he's not a brother. So
not even a brother.
Not even a brother.
Just stole a name and ran on with it.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. But the other interesting thing is he sent me a link. My colleague sent me a link of a Sydney Swans article that basically went in depth about the Scanlon brothers. So he's thinking, how the hell is media writing a question saying, were they brothers? Please let us know. We're really curious. And then he's got a link to, you guys know this.
You guys did the link. Yeah,
it was a bit confusing. But anyway, case closed. The Scanlon, Paddy and Joe were indeed brothers. So we've confirmed that. And that's a little bit of a feel good thing as a last thing.
Beautiful.
And that's all I've got.
Lovely, lovely. South Melbourne royalty.
Yeah.
Always good to end that way. Well, look, that brings us to the end of this episode, unfortunately. So on behalf of Bob, thank you very much for everyone listening in. If you're listening to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, please make sure you like and subscribe and whatever there. It does make a big difference to us and the way that the podcast runs. And of course, follow us on all the Instagram and Facebooks and whatnot. At the end of the day, there's very little good Swans media out there. So make sure you support your podcast wherever they are. So until then, up the Bloods and can you Swannies.